Shoe throwing. It's an act you might shrug off as child's play or an odd momentary burst of frustration. But did you know that this seemingly trivial act is steeped in history and tradition? It's been mentioned in ancient texts like the Bible, has sparked riots in ancient Rome, and has even been incorporated in wedding traditions back in Victorian Britain. Yes, even the Brits took it a step further, turning it into a sport of flinging rubber boots. Now, if we move past the history and look into the cultural implications, you'll find that in some parts of the world, this act is considered the ultimate insult. And yes, there have been instances of shoes being hurled at high-profile figures as an expression of protest. The infamous incident during the Iraq War involving then U.S. President George W. Bush comes to mind. But here's where the tale takes an interesting turn. I can't give everything away just yet. Stay tuned. What's up, my amazing and curious folks? Are you ready to unravel mysteries together? I'm your host, Caesar, and I'm joined by the ever-observant Sonia. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon to stay updated with all the intriguing episodes of the Curiosity Wonderland.
Hi there, everyone. Buckle up. We're in for an exciting journey of discovery today.
Did you know that shoe throwing has roots that reach back to biblical times? Yes, indeed, folks. It's mentioned in the Psalms, where God himself uses it as a metaphor. God apparently had such a deep disdain for the ancient kingdom of Edom that he mentioned casting out his shoe over it. Now that's a divine insult. This could signify taking possession or could symbolize a master throwing a dirty shoe at a slave to clean it. Either way, it wasn't a compliment. And here comes the twist. Our history has recorded an instance where a shoe thrown wasn't just an insult, but was a trigger for a rebellion. Picture the scene. It's the year 359. Constantius II, a Roman emperor, standing before his potential subjects, the Limigantes, armed slaves in Central Europe. He's delivering a speech, hoping to win them over. But then a shoe is thrown at the Romans by one of the Limigantes, shouting their war cry. You know what follows? Not a scuffle, not a brawl, but a full-scale riot. The emperor finds himself in the middle of a chaotic scene, but manages to escape on his horse. Now, how's that for a throw of rebellion, huh? Moving on to a different context, can you believe that shoe throwing used to be a wedding tradition during Victorian times in Britain? Newlyweds would be showered with old shoes to celebrate their union. The origin of this custom isn't entirely clear, but it seems that like throwing rice at newlyweds for good luck, shoes also held a symbolic importance in matrimonial rituals. And this wasn't limited to Britain. In Germany, the groom was required by law to present his bride with a new pair of shoes, and in Finland, they were gifted to the bride's mother.
That's so interesting, but I'm trying to picture it. Old shoes being thrown at a newlywed couple doesn't sound so romantic. Do you have an example to help me visualize this tradition?
Absolutely. Imagine it's a sunny day in Victorian England. A just-married couple is stepping out of the church glowing with joy. Suddenly, a hail of old boots, slippers, and worn-out shoes comes flying their way. It isn't an attack, but their friends and family showering them with footwear blessings. How about that? But hold on to your hats, because shoe throwing didn't just stay a tradition, it evolved into a sport in Britain. Ever heard of welly-wanging? It involves competitors flinging a rubber boot as far as they can. It started in a village called Upperthong in Yorkshire and now has an annual championship event. And another curious fact. You might have seen shoes dangling over power lines and wondered why. Well, according to urban myth, this shoe-throwing practice is supposedly a way for gangs or drug dealers to mark their territories. How true that is, we don't know, but it's certainly added to the mystery and intrigue of shoe throwing. Continuing on the topic of shoes on power lines, the reality seems to be more mundane than gang signs. It's likely that most shoes are thrown up there just because people spot other pairs hanging. It's mimicry. Other theories suggest it might be a way to commemorate lost loved ones, mark milestones, or just kids being kids. Now, let's traverse to the Middle East, where shoe throwing takes on a whole different significance. It's not about sports, celebrations, or mimicry. It's about disrespect. Showing the soles of your shoes or feet in Middle Eastern cultures is perceived as extremely insulting, and throwing a shoe, well, that's the ultimate sign of disrespect. This act carries both a cultural and social insult. It's like throwing dirt on a person and also implies a class division. The ability to throw a shoe away can be seen as a status symbol. Surely, some of you recall a famous incident from 2008 that illustrates this cultural significance. During a news conference in Baghdad, an Iraqi journalist named Muntazir al-Zaidi threw both his shoes at then U.S. President George W. Bush, shouting a farewell message on behalf of the Iraqi people. Even though he was subsequently tortured and sentenced to 3 years in jail, serving 9 months, he became something of a national hero in Iraq. This incident perhaps most clearly depicts the gravity of shoe throwing in certain cultures. The infamous shoe throwing incident involving Muntazir al-Zaidi and President Bush didn't just end there. It was turned into an online game where players could virtually hurl shoes at a digital Bush. Back in the real world, protesters took to the streets, flinging their footwear at effigies of the former president. An interesting turn of events occurred when al-Zaidi himself had a shoe thrown at him by another journalist at a press conference in Paris. It seems that shoe hurling had become a global phenomenon by then. This trend wasn't limited to the Middle East or America. In India, shoe throwing became a form of protest, replacing conventional hunger strikes. The trend was initiated by a New Delhi journalist named Jarnail Singh. This led to politicians, including Narendra Modi, taking measures to protect themselves from flying footwear. Narendra Modi even used volleyball nets when he appeared in public.
This whole shoe throwing discussion reminded me of a funny incident from my childhood. I was around 12 years old, and we were playing a game of capture the flag on a dirt field near my house. I was running towards the opponent's flag when suddenly a shoe, a worn-out sneaker to be precise, whizzed past me. It turned out that one of my friends, instead of trying to tag me, decided to throw his sneaker to stop me. It didn't stop me, but it did spark a new rule in our game: no shoe throwing. Who knew years later I would be here discussing how shoe throwing has become a form of global protest and a symbol of disrespect in some cultures.
Now, let's bring it back to the world of sports. Remember February 15th, 2003? Manchester United suffered a 2-0 loss against Arsenal, shattering their dreams of securing the title that season. Sir Alex Ferguson, the legendary manager, was livid. In the aftermath, football star David Beckham emerged from the changing rooms with a cut above his left eye, and rumors started circling that it was caused by a boot that Ferguson had hurled at him. Both Beckham and Ferguson later clarified that Ferguson had actually kicked the boot, not thrown it, and it was a freak accident. However, the damage was done. The incident made headline news and signaled the end of Beckham's time at the club. He transferred to Real Madrid at the end of that season. From hanging shoes on power lines to hurling them at politicians, and even in football changing rooms, the act of shoe throwing has evolved into a global phenomenon with varying interpretations and consequences. It's fascinating how a simple, everyday object like a shoe can carry such symbolic weight across different cultures. Wow, what a journey we've had today. From biblical times to ancient Rome, from Victorian weddings to modern sports, we've seen how shoe throwing has been an enduring and fascinating form of expression. It's surprising how a simple piece of footwear can carry such a weight of meaning and symbolism across cultures and eras. And who can forget the infamous incidents involving George W. Bush and David Beckham? It just goes to show, whether you're a world leader or a football superstar, you'd better keep an eye out for flying footwear.
It's been a real eye-opener. We hope you've enjoyed exploring this as much as we have. Don't forget to blast that like button if you did, and share your thoughts in the comments. Do you know of any other shoe-throwing incidents or traditions? We'd love to hear from you. And of course, share this episode with your friends. Who knows, they might find it as surprising and entertaining as we did.
Join us again next time for more intriguing stories and curious facts. Until then, keep your eyes on the sky and your shoes on the ground.
Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye. I found this captivating story on Listverse, in an article titled 10 Shocking Facts About Shoe Throwing, penned by Kieran Torbuck and published on February 12, 2024. If you want to dig deeper into this topic, you'll find the full link in our video description. Now I'm off.